Not all men. In the vast majority of discussions about gender equality and women's rights, the phrase not all men often emerges as a counter-argument to claims of systemic misogyny and or male violence. This is something I blame Ben Shapiro and his ilk for causing due to the obsession with using facts and logic to own the feminazis. While it is true that not every individual man perpetuates violent or harmful behaviors towards women, the not all men comeback fails to address the root issues of what's being discussed and just acts as a way for guys to say, well, I don't do that. Also, most of my following is male and I have a loving girlfriend of 3 years who actually got me the flowers and notes you see in the background. The dagger and Snoopy are mine. So I really have nothing to gain even if I was doing a fake feminist grift. Anyways, the not all men argument typically arises in response to generalizations about male behavior or societal structures that disadvantage women. For example, when women highlight the prevalence of sexual harassment or violence against women and say, men are perverts or men are this, some individuals might retort, not all men are like that, implying that criticisms of systemic issues unfairly malign the vast majority of innocent men. The primary flaw of the not all men argument, in my opinion, is its tendency to deflect attention from systemic issues in order to prioritize individual cases. Feminist critiques often focus on patterns of behavior and institutional biases rather than accusing every man of wrongdoing, but a lot of male-oriented spaces online treat feminism as some cult that wants a male genocide. For instance, discussing workplace harassment involves recognizing that while not every man harasses women, the problem is widespread enough to necessitate systemic change. This picture is a great image to convey that it's not good men versus bad men, but rather a spectrum of behaviors and thoughts that can lead to violence and discrimination of women being dismissed. When feminist activists highlight the impact of pervasive issues like sexual assault or gender discrimination, the not all men retort can invalidate the experiences of many survivors and those affected by systemic problems. This response also overlooks the fact that recognizing a pattern of behavior does not imply that every member of a particular group is culpable, but rather acknowledges that such issues are significant enough to warrant societal attention and action. In the comments of my Why Women Choose the Bear video and other spaces I've seen online, I've seen men try to liken saying all men to saying people should be afraid of black people for being overrepresented in crime statistics in the USA, which I also think is a weak argument. Individuals should never be held to the actions of other people in their demographic. However, if there is a pervasive culture and problems within that community, it's perfectly fine to have mature discussions about them, especially if you belong to said group. Hispanics have conversations about their treatment of immigrants and how immigrants turn legal and turn their back on others. Black people have discussions about gang violence and so on. Comparing 50% of the global population that has had legal systems and hierarchies oppressing women globally throughout history, even to today, compared to zoomed in populaces in varied demographics isn't a solid equivalence at all. On the other hand, it's understandable that many men might feel defensive or hurt when they hear criticisms about gender issues, and the not all men argument often stems from a place of wanting to be seen as separate from harmful behaviors. When I was in middle school and high school, I was in a similar camp of saying not all men and trying to distance myself, and it wasn't until I made more female friends and grew up alongside them that I started hearing the horror stories and how commonplace misogyny and violence against women was. I think a lot of men realize this fast when they finally get girlfriends or have a daughter. Not all men turns into don't hang out with him alone or we can't have a male babysitter really quick. It's important to know that these feelings are valid and that not every man engages in or condones misogynistic actions. However, having such a knee-jerk reaction, especially an angry or bitter one, may be due to you having internalized prejudices or you not paying attention to how people have to go through their lives. The not all men argument also often reflects a misunderstanding of feminism itself. Feminism at its core seeks to address and rectify gender-based inequalities and injustices. It does not claim that every individual of one gender is guilty of or responsible for all issues related to gender inequality. Instead, feminism seeks to highlight patterns, challenge systemic biases, and promote equal rights for all genders. Now, of course, feminism is also not a monolith, and some may be more radical than others or have different solutions and viewpoints. I'm not an expert in feminist texts and theories, I'm still reading, but if you're still a guy who says feminazi or Western women, you probably benefit from reading and listening from the sources themselves instead of just social media clips. I know the P word is scary, but as a guy, it's like being a fish in a fish tank. You don't see the water. For example, you may not have ever laid a finger on a woman or sexually harassed anyone, but have you ever called out your friend for catcalling girls when you guys are drunk at the club? When your dad told you to be a man while you were crying as a child, Did you think it was tough masculine love? When your favorite celebrity gets accused of sexual misconduct, is your first reaction, they're lying, despite the fact that you never met said celebrity? The issue can be much deeper than just one bad guy making us look bad as men. In conclusion, the not all men argument is an ineffective counterpoint in feminist discourse because it shifts focus away from systemic issues, minimizes valid concerns, and overlooks how men can also be hurt by other men under our current societal expectations and the patriarchy. Wow, that was a mouthful. Do not clip that. Don't clip that out of context. If you want to genuinely support gender equality and contribute meaningfully to discussions on this topic, it's important to approach these conversations with an open mind and a willingness to listen, especially if you've never experienced womanhood. Begin by actively listening to women's experiences and perspectives on gender issues, or even other men as a whole, but this kind of pertains to the not all men dynamic anyway. But that's just my advice from my life experiences and the women I've talked to. If you got this far and you liked the video, comment, comments, questions, concerns, anything, like the comment, copy the link. Sending my videos to subreddits and just other communities boosts me a lot, but you don't have to be self-promo or like pushy with it. But yeah, thank you for watching, and see you guys in the next vid.